Let us proceed. Last night I worked in, or the other night I worked in color, or I worked in black and white, and tonight I'm going to work in color because initially I did that just so I wouldn't have to bother trying to decide color, just to kind of keep as much information squished into an hour as I can. Well, that kind of ran into affecting things I was going to demonstrate, little tricks and stuff, and where it would have been a lot easier to have color. So I'm gonna try to do a basic landscape, not get too picky about it. It's not gonna look as good as anything that I'd actually upload, but it'll demonstrate the techniques that I use. Okay, and I'm using my finger, so when you hear tappity tap, I don't have a nice stylus. So okay, so here we go. Typical Bob Ross starting. We'll start off with a nice color for the sky. Something about like that, maybe a little darker, maybe even a little darker. Like I said that like a question. It's nice it's an easy way to start with vector, put it on gradient. You can choose all or nothing here. I'm not going to peg it, but we'll put it at about 70% and start with a lighter color, maybe a pink. Maybe a warm pink. There we go. And now I'm going to put that gradient. Now I can start this anywhere. This is going to be pretty much just getting the sky to fade. If I wanted it to look more like a sunset, I'd start from this side so that it goes, from light to dark across the sky like that. But I tend to like to even start a little bit lower. So it kind of puts some atmosphere. So there you go. It's a nice, easy way to get a basic sky color going. I'm practicing clouds, different kind of clouds, and eventually I'm going to teach a better class about this. But I have a standard way of doing clouds. I've taught this lots of times. Where I would use the same pink color that I use, the same exact, might as well. And it's good to do this because it maintains a certain continuity in your sketch when you sort of use the same colors. I could have just as easily gone to white, but this way it'll actually look like the clouds have a legitimate home. So I come up to the next layer, and we go into brushes, and my favorite always is Tino's smoke brush. I love this brush. It makes a good start for clouds. I tend to like Bob Ross a lot. I watched a lot of his stuff, so I tend to use the same technique that he did, a very similar one. Now I'm going to, like I did last night, I'll show you again. This is what I'm going to be doing, the motions that I'll be doing is just basic curves like this. Just like if you were just cartooning out a regular cloud, right? This is what my finger is going to be doing with the other brush, just so you know. Alright. Be gone. Okay, so we have Tino's smoke brush. Make sure that your brush is in the over mode. For those that don't already know that, I'm sure you do. I already use it in over. And then I start making these little moves. Before I do, I'll remind you again that with Tino's smoke brush, when you move slowly, you get little clouds. When you move fast, you have the size up. Let me try that again. When you move slowly, you get little clouds, and as you speed up, the cloud gets bigger. Okay? We're gonna make use of that. So okay, so we're gonna make those little loops. Some of them slow, some of them fast. If you want a lot of detail, it helps to zoom in because your smaller finger movements or your normal finger movements will cover a smaller amount of ground, so you can get more detail in. But see, so I'm just kind of looping some of them, and I'm only worried about the top edge. Only care about the texture at the top edge. So we'll put some in there. Looks like it might Need some detail there, maybe. Maybe come back up a little bit. I will warn you that my iPad tends to freeze up a little bit, so there could be some lag. Okay, so there you go. You got that. Not very impressive as a cloud. So here's the Bob Ross thing. You go to erase. Now what Bob always did is he would blend in the bottom of the cloud. And you could do that with smudge, but I prefer to do it with the erase tool and the airbrush, or not the erase tool, but use the same brush. Just put it on erase and use the airbrush, and just gently kick the opacity up to about 1/3 of the way up so you don't overdo it. You can control it better that way. And just erase the bottom. That's where the shadows are going to be, so you don't need that. Just only maintain the top edge. It's a really good way to get some drama in the clouds. You don't have to make it all, like I can push that back, for instance, and that's kind of a good thing because that'll let the next layer show up a little better. So maybe in those little recesses you can push them back. So there you go. You got a cloud with some nice highlights on it. So you just erase the bottom of it for the most part as thoroughly as you want, or it doesn't matter because what's going to come next is going to cover over it. So you go back and do it again. That's the procedure, and you do it 2 or 3 times. I don't know why that brush wants to stay so small. So we do some more clouds, same thing, maybe a little up there. Don't worry too much about it, just kind of plop them in, you know. Just play. This is more like, it's a very playful kind of technique overall. And I discovered that because I tend to do this anytime that I do skies, it's my go-to. Yeah, happy little clouds, that's what we're talking about. So we go back to erase. And I'm making more work for Jem. She's got to go back in and do all this editing now. So you do the same thing with this layer as well. You go back in and keep taking out that bottom edge and just maintain the top edge. It's a really effective way to multi-layer clouds like this. And once you get one bank of them, honestly, you can just do some copying and pasting. I tend to do 3 of them and then flip the thing over. All right, we'll try this one more time, one last layer. And then we're going to go to vector. So, all right. So this is the thing, I'm going to do this really fast. There we go. And go to erase. And hit the airbrush. Kick the size up, kick the opacity up a little bit. We ain't got time for this. Alright, so there you go. 3 layers. Yay. So you can put dark underneath. I demonstrated last night how to do that. I'm not going to bother because this is kind of cool looking. So we'll just call that good. So here's my trick, because as pretty as that is, it always assumes that you're looking at a kind of like a certain eye level to the cloud, and that's not the way things happen. So feel free to, and this is probably going to crash. Probably going to crash the system. If just painting did, I'm sure transform might. So let's transform it a little bit. Let's make it bigger. Let me pull a perspective out on one side or another. Yeah, that's better. So there you go. See, it's a whole different thing when it's all stretched out. Before, after. Or crash or something. Something's coming. There we go. Alright. Easy way to do a sky, right? Easy peasy. Now you can move that down, you can put the moon in the background, you can do any number of things. Um, the nice thing about it is that you can keep that as a separate layer, go over it in the on mode, change the colors, put some shadows in underneath it and stuff, so it might be beneficial to keep it as a separate layer. I'm not going to do that just to save on hopefully not too many crashes. I'm going to try to keep the layers down to not much and nothing here. Alright, so we go to the next layer and you put in those nice mountains that we always do. And I don't know, maybe that's a good color to start with. I don't know. I'm not going to worry too much about picking colors. So you go to vector, put it in over. You probably don't want gradient, although I gotta say gradient does an interesting effect. There's two different ways to get that same effect, and I'll show you the other one. So we'll synthesize a gradient after I do this. So I'll keep the opacity all the way up and just kind of put a mountain in the background. It can go, now Bob used to go, he'd do it more like this. He would just put like a mountain up here, and you just, that would be it. He would kind of, blend the paint. And then again, the same kind of thing where he'd blend out the bottom of it. That's a good way if all you want is one or two mountains like this. You don't necessarily have to go all the way. You can cover it up with something else or whatever. In fact, you know what? Let's do it his way. Yeah, why not? We'll do it his way. So there's a mountain. We need a highlight color. Usually a good color to pick is a lighter version of, it depends on the color of the light. If it's a sunset and it's orangey and all that, you want to pick appropriate colors. I'm just going to go with a lighter version of this, and we'll do the highlight thing. So like I showed you last night and in other videos, you are working on your mountain layer. You put the vector in on mode, and this is where the scribbling comes in. And we'll do this really quickly because last night I explained it in more detail. So we'll just hit the highlight side of the clouds, and you want to scribble downhill. I'm going to lighten that up just a little more. Just a little more. So you want to imagine, like I said last night, the hill is going to come down this way, and I don't know, maybe it wanders over this way. Maybe it comes right over here. Maybe there's a big shelf there, whatever, and then tumbles down the hill. Alright, so I'm all the way down the hill. This is where the scribbling really comes in, is that you scribble kind of up and down and kind of up and downhill a little bit. Keep the same slope going. You can take a few side trails over there if you want. Scribble over there, come back here. But just make sure you cross your line a lot. And any lines you go off and do on the side like this, just cross them on the way back too. That's how you get all your texture. Maintain the up and down flow of the feel of the hill. So there you go. That's the basic technique. It's all just scribbling. And we do the whole side of the hill. I'm going to do this really quickly. And it should go quickly. It shouldn't really... It's more fun to just kind of do it, throw it out there, and don't worry about details so much. The details just happen. You can correct anything. If there's a part you don't like, don't stop, don't go back. I'll show you a quick way to fix some of those things. So okay, so you can see where it carves in faces in the rock. Well, not necessarily faces, facets, if you will. You can start going across. Maybe there's some levels that do this. Go across a little bit, and maybe it starts going back uphill. And you end up where you start. That's the other thing. That's the other key thing, is that when you do a scribble, you come back, finish where you start. Yep, cool technique, isn't it? And very easy. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat the details. Oh, that sucks. Don't do that. I will find you and hit you. You can make this up on the fly, and like I said, it's a very quick technique. Don't worry about it. Don't stop and look back. Just scribble forth and then scribble back up. Again, with the clouds, like I said with the clouds, if you want more detail, zoom in. If you're working, like if you have the canvas just that size, you're going to have to make little tiny scribbles. And that's really quite difficult to do. So as you zoom in, of course, you get a lot more mileage for the distance that you're, that your finger is actually traveling. You can really get in there and put some nice little features in. So okay, so like that's good enough. Okay, now it's good enough. Wait, there, now it's good enough. Anyway, so let's do the same thing. Let's try the Bob. Let's try the Bob Ross thing, the blob. All right. Maybe I needed a bit longer nap. I don't know. I'll kick that up. And this is cool because it will. Forgot to put it on erase. There we go. This will. The cool thing about any mist that would be in between you and the distance is probably going to be close to the sky color anyway. It's freezing up on me. Yeah, Rob. So that's kind of a nice way to push clouds or not clouds, but mountains and stuff into the distance. So that's kind of the Bob Ross technique. Ideally, I would have gone back in and added a shadow color, but we're just going to move forward because we only have an hour. So there's a cool way to do this, and you can even, if you want to, if you perceive, say, the left side of the mountain to be slightly farther away than you, then erase a little bit over there too, because it's fading into the atmosphere. The blue of the sky and all of that tends to absorb colors and diffuse them at a distance. So that's one thing that will push things into the distance is to partially erase them, and then it looks like there's atmosphere between you and the background. All right, so there we go with that layer. Easy, easy. Then let's go a little greener. I hope you didn't hear that. My stomach just made a noise. It was kind of a funny noise. Erp. Borborygmi. Back to vector. Am I going too fast? Do you guys have any questions? I'm going to do basically just the same thing with this next layer to take just to draw kind of a loose graph maybe. You know what? Maybe we'll put some water in this one. There. Some happy water. So we can do that. The thing about getting into water is that I tend to want to mirror the background. Like to drag another layer underneath the mountain, copy it down, then transform it. So we got that kind of thing going on. Easy enough, huh? Yeah. Happy reflections there. So we do that. The distant is going to, again, we could texture this. You could just kind of, give it a little variation, maybe with any kind of texture brush done really tiny, I imagine would be okay. Like, we'll take my grass brush and make it small. And this is going to get very crashy. I was having problems with this last night. Ever since I did the upgrade, my iPad 2 has been struggling a little with Sketch Club. But all right, so I'll go a little darker. We'll put in some details and draw in maybe just some stuff in the valley. smaller. Oh, I wanted it kind of in on mode. That's what I was doing. And with this, you don't want to just block in color necessarily. You kind of, again, you want to, with most landscaping, it's keeping in mind the way the land lays. It's going to go back and forth in different directions, and keep in mind when I'm doing this, if what I'm actually doing right now doesn't look too impressive, keep in mind if I'm doing something for a competition or a sketch that, you know, I mean it when I'm working on it, I'll hit undo a lot. Undo is one of my best friends. So keep in mind I don't expect perfection out of myself, you know, right away. So this is kind of a nice one, even though it's a grass brush. It sort of looks like trees back there. You can press different brushes into service for different things. Like for instance, you could use a tree brush to actually do the branches on a bigger tree that you've drawn. You can use that to do the leaves. So I'm not gonna beat this up. I'm just kind of going back and forth with some lines, just to kind of get some kind of texture in here. And again, I'm not worrying about this too much, just kind of going back and forth and kind of, well, there's a hill here and maybe it rolls back this way. And keeping in mind that you want a little more of the deeper tones where the shadows would be, depending on where your light source is coming from. Mine's coming a little more from the left. It's locked up on me. Come on. Might even make that just a little bit bigger, but I don't want it to, there we go. I don't want it to be apparent that it's a grass brush. As it gets closer, you know, you can, as it would, things would get bigger, so. Alright. So maybe by the time we get to there, it locked up again. There we go. And we can go back in and you know, affect the shading of stuff later. If it looks too dark in one place, I'm kind of discovering the joys of using the dodge tool. Alright, so up in here, it might look like that's not exactly trees, so that might be the time somewhere in between here to introduce into here a different brush. We'll still keep it in on mode, but we'll, there's my favorite brush. We're not using that one. Oh, it all got rearranged. I like some of these tree brushes, but I wish the brushes had several trees that were all different, like a little group of pine trees. I may have to make some nice tree brushes for this kind of use, because you know. All right, we'll use that. That one tends to look pretty good. So we'll go back in, and because we're getting closer, there's less atmosphere between you and the background, which means the colors are going to be a little darker. And maybe the saturation kicks up. Saturation and darkness will fade with distance. So, all right, we'll see how tiny this comes out. Let's see. Oh, I have this. Excuse me while I don't know why I have to do this. Maybe it's the way I have the canvas oriented. There we go. Okay. So I have this brush with a taper. So we'll start bringing in the pines. And you just don't worry about so much the back. or I'm sorry, the foreground. Don't worry so much about that. You just want like to get, it's sort of like the clouds. You just care about the top line. So much of these techniques are repeating. It's the same, the scribbling is all the same. When I do the same scribbling that I use for the mountain, that's the way I'll do tree bark. The same technique that I just got done with the clouds, where you do the top edge and then erase the bottom, that's sort of the way I'm thinking here, is that I just want a representation of you know, the trees that come into the foreground. Let me bring that down even a little smaller and put some in the background there. And keep in mind, now that you have the grass laid out, or the lay of the land, so to speak, you want to follow that with the next layer, which is these trees. Also, something like a tree brush, you're going to want to have variance in size. Go in and play with the parameters so that it is easy. This is easy, Mish. It's just, I'm always kind of surprised that everybody likes my landscapes so much, because honestly, they're so easy that I almost feel like I'm getting away with something. Now, I kind of wish I had locked up again. I kind of wish I had put these trees on a separate layer. It would be a little easier to treat them as I have. Indeed. So I'm gonna darken this up a little bit and a little more saturation, and then kind of go back in where I already did. And I want to maintain, I'm just dotting. I don't want to inundate the line I just put in. I just want to hit little select areas, maybe a little back in there, just to get some variation, just so they're not all the same color. If I had done this on a separate layer, I would have this in on mode, so that I'm not adding more trees, I'm only changing the ones that are there. That's ideally what I'd like to be doing. See, so you just kind of go in and add some variation across the way. And again, don't worry about it. And you know why the reason I say it's easy, you say it looks easy, and the reason it is easy, because I'm not worried about it. I'm just, I mean, if something really sucks, I'll hit undo, but with this kind of stuff, I don't worry about that so much at all. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you just go back in and add some variation very quickly. And see how nice that looks? I mean, it looks semi-real. So as you come closer, the trees get a little trees get a little bigger, and they get a little darker, and a little more saturation. I'm making very small adjustments as I come forward, because you really don't want... Is that too big? I think it's too big for that far away. Everything in small adjustments looks more convincing. It's better to take the time and yeah, take the time. Yeah, that's what it's better than. I know, them are some happy trees. And then we'll, just for variance, lighten it up a little bit. We'll take a step backwards, just so that row of trees doesn't look so... Maybe I didn't adjust it quite light enough. Yeah, there we go. You always want to kind of break up the monotony of any given tone, and just don't do a straight line. I'm just kind of touching. That's why you hear lots of tapping. So that adds more variation, and then we can go back and sample the darker color. Come in and do a line a little bit lower. I think I want to make them too much bigger than this now. Make the front edge ragged. Don't make it a straight line unless that's actually, you know, what if you're following a reference and that's what it implies or whatever. Alright, so there we go. We got that. See that nice straight line? Just like I told you not to do, right? Just like I told you not to do. We'll go small in front, and we'll go with darker. A little more definition. Oh. A little bigger. A lot of the reason I decided to start doing landscapes in this really fast method is because, honestly, my attention span kind of sucks for things. It's not very often I get into 12-hour, you know, this is probably why I don't get into doing reproductions. I don't think I have the patience to do a project that big. I like things that go fast and easy. You can make any jokes you want to in there. Insert the joke of your choice. Alright, so that's the basic idea. I think would put a bit more time into this. Because it's looking kind of nice, you know. Foothills look good. Oh. Let's take it off. Yeah. There we go. I'll make that come right up like that. Yeah, that's better. So that's the way it's kind of coming around to you. Alright, so what do we do now? What would be closer? Let's go with kind of a grass brush. Something that looks like dense foliage. I don't know how much of that I actually have here without... We'll put a couple of these in. I'm actually thinking I want to put this back in on mode. This is the part of our show where we kind of make it up as we go for a second. Kind of a dirt color. Looking for dirt. And I'll use maybe an airbrush. I have to say about the way my my landscapes tend to look. I'm well aware that they're not realistic. It's not really what I do. I do more of an illustrative kind of approach. One of the art forms that I'm always really fascinated in is the landscapes that you see used in anime series. I really like the way they're rendered. They kind of look like watercolor. They're probably not. Probably all digital, but I tend to like illustrated style landscapes. I'm very impressed by photorealistic stuff. Beautiful seascapes that look like you could just be there, but yeah, that ain't me. I don't do that. I grew up with comic books. So as a result, that's kind of where I am. So you can see what I'm doing. It's just kind of throwing in some, you know, more edge of the forest, dirt kind of things. Not too worried about this up here. Probably not going to see much of this. Let's see how I'm doing on time here. Yeah, 15. We've been at this 45 minutes already, ladies and gents. So I'm not gonna worry too much about how accurate that is, because we'll have stuff that's probably going to cover up that near bank. All right. Now, granted, we have nothing on the left side. We have a nice mountain on one side. You know, the other nice thing about doing digital is that, now this is something that I never saw Bob be able to do, is to go back in and put, for instance, ice caps. If I wanted to put snow on those mountains, it presents little, if any, problem. It's the nice thing about keeping everything on separate layers, so I can go back and affect the mountain. Well, you could use a layer in between if you wanted to. Let me merge that down. So I'll do that. I'll use a layer in between, and just for the heck of it, I was saying that a mist would tend to reflect the same color as the sky, but you know what? I may have lied. I may have been completely mistaken about that. So we're gonna try some. There we go. Some white mist. Oh, see, isn't that nice? I'll put some over there. I know. I didn't mean it. It wasn't intentional. But that's one of those things that will push things into the distance. That's too bright. That kind of sucks. So we could try different blend modes. That's the other thing that I do. It's like, you know, if you just want to see how something's going to look, try different blend modes, experiment with that. Or you can just knock down the opacity if you want. Let's try a few blend modes. Well, nothing impressive. Nah, just keep it in normal. I'll just knock the opacity down a little bit. Actually, I kind of like that better. So, fog banks and mist in between your layers adds distance between them. All of these things, contrast and saturation, should be lower with things at a distance. So gradually becoming more colorful and a bit darker as they get closer to you. That synthesizes the atmosphere, the amount of moisture in the air. Focus, you can also use that, so you can, because the clouds are soft and kind of blurry anyway, you might not want to do it with that, but I could blur the mountain and then blur the foothill that you see, the next layer closer to you. Blur that just a little bit, and then like the trees that are near the water's edge, keep them a little sharper, but maybe blur them just constantly. And that's if you really want to focus. Whatever layer you have in focus is going to be the one that gets the attention. So you could blur the background mountains quite a bit. Come up and the green foothills, you could blur those a little bit. Like I said, do the trees and then focus on, like, if it weren't so tiny, something in the water. You know, I was going to say two people in a boat, but at this distance, that would look stupid. But, you know, if you put an ocean liner and there's something significant, whatever, a little island or something like that, and then you blur your foreground, the things like if you had just tree leaves, no real foreground to speak of, maybe it's just some trees on either side and silhouette black just to frame the whole thing. If you put those out of focus and everything in the distance out of focus, and your whatever's in the water was sharply in focus, there you go. That rivets your attention right to that depth. It's in photography, they call it depth of field. And a lot of times you'll see there's an app, I'm really meandering here, but there's an app, I can't remember the name of it, but it will let you focus, take a regular photograph, and it's really interesting the effect it has. If you, for instance, say you're in a parking lot of, you know, Walmart or something like that, you see a car you like or whatever, you take a picture of that car in the parking lot. And especially if you can get a little, so it looks like you're standing up above it, hold the camera up high, but say if you get that car and it's relatively close to you, you can take one of these apps and make just a very specific part of that car the only thing in focus. So say just the front end. And when you do this, it has this really cool effect because everything else goes out of focus when you look at the finished product, it looks like a model car. It doesn't look like a real car anymore. It looks like a really well-built model, a scale model. For some reason, it implies uh, it, and I've never tried it with my drawings, but yeah, it gives them kind of a model look, like a little set that somebody built, you know, a diorama. So that's kind of a cool thing to play with. It's depth of field. There's another term for it, and I can't think of what it is now. So anyway, I digress heavily, majorly. All right, so what are we doing now? We got trees, we got some dirt. We don't have much texture over there. I'm already running into an hour, and honestly, this class, this could just go and go and go. I could teach for another hour. Because it means I just move slower. Tilt shift, that's it, tilt shift. That's the term. Thank you, Jules. That's exactly, I knew it started with a T. So let's pick some grassy stuff. I'll keep going as long as you guys want. Well, up to a certain reasonable point. I mean, let's not get crazy. All right, let's put some bushes in. And kind of a different green. Okay. If you guys are liking it. Now just for the giggles, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna merge that down, clear up this layer, and move that one up. So I'm gonna put this next line just on its own layer, just for the heck of it. This is not a formal class, by the way. You guys can chew gum, even if you didn't bring enough for everyone. It's okay. It's okay. Way too big. Anybody else having trouble hearing me? Why am I seeing nothing? Why do I see nothing? Do I have it under? Oh, I do. That's why. Okay. Got it. Let me clear that. Try it again. There we go. I'm just on this layer, I'm just going to put some stuff, just little dots of color, just to kind of do something in between the bottom of the trees and the shoreline. I don't want to go too crazy with it, so. And because it's on its own layer now, I can go back in and add color just to specific areas without actually having to necessarily draw more shrubbery. It's all about building your picture. It really is, from back to front, although you have the option of starting and building any direction you want thanks to layers. But it really is about going from back to front ultimately. Okay, I'll bring a bit of that around this way. Really won't see that water's edge very much. What brush is this? This is that one. I can't tell you which one it is. I haven't taken advantage of these, the renaming and all this stuff. I really have to get in and work with my brushes a little more. I would encourage you to go into the, we'll see how long this takes. into some of the sketch club areas and look at the nature brushes, and there's plenty of these in there. Let's see, we have nature, natural, no, yeah, there we go. And in there you'll see up at the top, Jules has a nice brush, lots of grass. And it's as easy, if you don't know, it's as easy as just tapping on it. There you go. And just like that, we got lots of grass. So you can see there's clouds in there. I use those. I've experimented with a lot of these things. Falling leaves, that's a cool one. I'll have to have that one. Sorry, I don't mean to go brush shopping. I have you guys. Lots of grass. Nice, Jules. You can see right here I have a brush that I didn't realize was a feather until I blew the size up. I was using it for pine boughs. I made a pine tree and used that for the bristles, and it worked really well. That's why I got this. That's why I got an eyelash brush. Somebody made, I forget who made it, but I figured that would be kind of fun to try as some kind of foliage or something like that. So experiment, play around, you know, use different things, different textures. If you're doing an abstract, it doesn't have to look anything like a leaf. But yeah, if you look around in the natural and organic and the, you know, a lot of the different ones. There's our favorite one right there. Is she in here? Is my shell in here? Oh, okay. So, anyway, where was I? Let's pick something else. Some other kind of little grassy thing. Like, I don't know, lots of grass maybe. we'll try Jules' brush. We'll see how this goes. And I'll use it really small. And let's see, we'll keep it in on mode, and we'll do like a dark greenish grass. We'll see how this goes. Oh, look at that. Wow. Wow. That's a lot of grass. That is a lot of grass. Nice, Jules. So let's see, do I have it? Okay, I'll put it in on mode. So now we're only going to draw on the on the green I already put down. And I'm not actually using it to portray grass. I'm kind of just using it to break up the yellowish color so it's not so uniform. I'm going to have to play with this brush. I like it. Lots of grass. I'll see how it interfaces with the one that I did and see if between the two it makes a nice kind of a gentle field or something. All right, anyway. I'm going way too fast here. I just don't want to, I don't want this to go on forever tonight. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. All right, that's pretty good. Right? Yeah, it is. It is kind of watercolory. So the basic idea is, yeah, that you just keep coming forward. The next thing that you would probably do is, oh, I don't want that. The water doesn't always reflect the exact color of the sky. Typically it would be a little darker, so let's do that. Let's take that, we'll try gradient, a vector gradient, and we'll see where this leads us. We'll put some deeper blue, and I'm only going to put it where I'm using the layer, the background layer that has the sky color, and we'll see what happens here. There you go. Typically that's what you'd find more with water, and I should, I'm going to have to, I would go in and recopy those mountains down. Let's see what happens if I do it from the other side. Maybe that's more convincing. Either way, yeah, that's pretty good. And then let's do this. Let's separate those again with our new handy dandy select tool. Gotta love that, huh? Man, I told BP that if he ever made me a select brush, that I'd kiss him. I'd come and find him and kiss him. And so he didn't make it for a long time. And I think he thought I forgot about that. But I didn't. So it's just a matter of time. I gotta go hunt him down and kiss the poor bastard. Alright, so now we have this here. And I'll say done. And the other thing I'm finding with the select tool, it's a good idea to always go in and clear it. Lots of times you'll go on to the next step and it won't work. You'll say, why doesn't my brush work? Well, because you have like one pixel selected somewhere still. So when you use the select tool, always go back in before you choose your next tool and hit the clear. And alright, so what do I got here? Alright, I still have to select that background, this layer, right? And get rid of the mountain. So let me turn that new layer off. So we'll clear this out with vector and erase, no gradient, 100%. Good, that's gone. Now I can take this layer and apply it in a different way. We'll see if we can make it look a little more realistic by some blend mode somehow. Nope. Nope. Maybe. Overlay is a candidate. Lighten, meh. And I would also blur this, by the way. That's not bad. I'm not in love with it. Maybe if I copied it down, I might like that a little more. That's pretty cool. That's a nice reflection. That's not too bad. What, soft light? You like soft light better? That's a weird one. Exclusion. That'd be wintry. You like soft light? It looks a little subtle to me. And you know, there's no reflection of the trees whatsoever, and that kind of bothers me. That's another reason the trees should have been on their own layer, is because it would be kind of a challenge. I don't think I'm going to bother with it now, but I would have reversed those and flipped those. Alright, well, I'll tell you what, if I'm going to do that in soft light, let me try an experiment. Let me add another layer and copy it down. And that's normal, and we'll put that in soft light too. I like that a little better. Hey. Didn't want to play nice. Alright, well, I like the additional layer better. Yeah, I could select the trees, but I'd have to, what I'd probably choose would be only the darkest ones. So I mean, that's kind of a complicated line to try to select and separate those two layers right there, the dark from the the ones near the top of the screen. That's probably, it's the closest batch that I would try to copy. Yeah, there's an easy way to do it. I just don't want to take the time to choose specifically the darkest trees. So, and you wouldn't choose the shoreline either. The shoreline is flat, so it wouldn't reflect. And you wouldn't see the absolute top of the trees. This is something that perspective comes into play. Glenn's done some really good stuff on perspective, but as perspective would come forward, depending on where your eye level is, which is far above the lake, the perspective lines would be coming at you the same way. So it depends on where the trees reside on that inverted perspective layer on the underside of that as to how much you'd actually see the tops of them reflected in the water. You wouldn't see, you can't just flip it over and, you know, you have to keep certain things in mind. So if you reflect something that's farther away from the shoreline, the farther away from the shoreline it gets, the less of it you're actually going to see reflected in the water. I guess that's the bottom line. So that's the way that goes. All right, so we can come forward now. We can, oh, the other thing I'll show you too, as long as we have this. I really want to merge these. I really do. And it's going to look crappy again if I do. Oh. What if I copy that one down? I really don't like this. All right. Yeah, okay, as long as it's on one layer, I guess that's all I care about. And we'll put that one on the top. Because this is what I want to do. You wouldn't see, unless there was absolutely no weather going on at all, that reflection wouldn't look like that. So this is where we need our pal Smudgy to come in. You will want to pick a brush that is where do I get my other brushes? Come on. That ain't gonna work. Sorry, that's not gonna work. I need a different brush. Do I go here? Where was my brush? I need a stipple brush. See, and I don't want to create it from a photo, and I don't want to create it from I don't want to create it, I already have it. I want to go get it. Yeah, but I don't know how to add it. It doesn't say from my libraries. Well, anyway, you know what? We're just going to go with what we have then, because I don't want to waste your time. So you put smudge, you put it in over, and all right, let's just use this one because it's the stippliest. So you knock down the effect. You don't want this to be very, very strong. And you turn on the line tool, and you get nice straight lines. So what you want to do, I hope this works out. You go to your brush that has the inverted mountain, and stay parallel with the bottom of the canvas. Okay? See what I'm doing here? And then you can pull it back the other way. You just want to make sure you go straight across. So the general idea is to just synthesize the distortion that water would give it. Then Bob would always, actually the first thing he would do is to pull straight down. I don't know if it really matters so much with this technique. I'm just going to kind of do this quickly. But that's the idea, to get two different directions of pull. The reason that I would prefer a stippled brush is because it would synthesize more, little ripples in the water and that kind of thing. So you do this a couple of times. I don't know. If it sucks, that's what undo is for. that was that was probably the lamest thing I could say as a teacher. I don't know. That's what undo is for. Just undo it. Anyway, I will say this isn't really exactly. I would not accept that if this were an actual thing. But until I can get my brush situation figured out there. That's the idea, though, is that you want to drag just lightly. You don't want to go crazy, so keep your opacity down, but just pull the reflection down a little bit with a stippled brush and then pull directly across, making sure it goes exactly across. And that'll add a more convincing reflection. Okay. All right, that's as far as I'm going to go with reflections. We're not going to do that. Now here's the other thing too that happens on the shoreline. We're going to go up to our shoreline thing. Another detail you'll want to add will be a little bit of water. Easiest way to do that is to push to either use vector. Vector works pretty well for this, but keep the brush in on mode. You want to stay on. You can see on the layer that it's transparent beneath the one that I have selected, or just where the water is. So here's what you want to do. You want to just, oops, not in line. Let me go freehand. Just a little bit along the edge here and there. Just the edge. And I mean, like, not aggressive at all. That might be a little bit too aggressive what I'm doing over there. You want to really keep it minimal, because it's a long ways away, and honestly the ripples wouldn't be that visible. This is what I mean about being more of an illustrator rather than a realistic landscape artist, because I can kind of get away with non-photographic things. It's not really designed to have to fool anybody into believing it's real. So you want to do that. It doesn't have to be a straight continuous thing. It can be kind of a broken thing. So see, that helps sell it a little more too. And you can go out here, depending on the way the water flows. I used to think that you would just do these straight across. That's what Bob Ross used to do. He would more or less. Let me do it with a pen tool and with the line. And the way Bob used to do it was he'd pretty much go straight across like this and just make. I guess it's not going to show up. Oh, that's why. He'd do these kind of things, but he'd make sure they were straight, and that's not bad. It kind of works. But in reality, sometimes waves don't do that. Sometimes there's a certain degree of like wind blowing across the water's surface, and you might get a wave that tends to be more like this, and you could break this line up. But I mean, if draw a few lines this way, because let's say there's a big gust of wind that's hitting the lake right there, and then you go in and erase. You would erase those lines in the more horizontal fashion, just to kind of break it up so they don't look necessarily like continuous lines. But there'd be waves bouncing along the shore in here. So even though Bob taught the method of going straight across to get your reflections and things, I think this is actually more viable and a little more realistic. It does look like waves. It puts the water in motion. A lot of his lakes and ponds look very still, and like that. That actually looks like a little creek, doesn't it? Like a little creek going away. That's cool. So maybe the thing to do is to put it on erase And let's try scribbling back and forth, just to kind of break this up a little bit. Maybe even kick the pen size up a little. Might be a little too big. See, so that way it just doesn't look like. It just makes me wonder what layer I have this on. I may have goofed up. See what I mean? So there you go. You kind of can kind of synthesize waves that way. That, to me, that looks more convincing. So, all right. And also, by the way, if you're going to have that much motion in the water, you wouldn't have the mountain look that pristine. So you could actually come into that layer, put it on erase, and I'm not sure vector is necessarily the tool for this, but I'm going to use it just to illustrate my point, is that you could go in and remove, you know, parts of the reflection like this. And again, I'm experimenting with you guys. This is something that I wouldn't, you know, if it didn't work out, I would hit undo and move on, but it's kind of, I guess I'm trying to demonstrate just more the principle of what you would see in nature, even if I'm not necessarily executing it perfectly in here, but you get the idea. That's more something, yeah, that's something more like what you'd get. I would actually be a little more careful, but yeah, that's kind of the idea. So it looks a little less mirrored, you know. You get more of the impression of the reflection. Maybe just even like take a lot of that right out. I don't know. I don't know. All right. Any questions? I do. What time is it? 9:16 already, my time. So now if you want to just kind of do something in the foreground, pick an upper layer. And anything on that? Nope. And let's just pick a grass brush. Actually, you could go with vector. I kind of like vector because it just drops in a big block of color you can work with. It just gets the color on the canvas faster. Okay, so gradient 100%. No gradient, I mean. 100%, and I'll just sample another color. Maybe it even comes up a little more. And we can put a tree right in there. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go with the grass brush. Sorry, Jules, it's going to be my grass brush this time. And depending on how big this is, I might have to adjust this. I think it's kind of large. Oh, okay, that's why. Right. Do I have this canvas relative or something? Thank you. So all I'm doing is, oh, I hate when that happens. I'm just getting rid of that sharp edge and giving it something that looks more natural. I don't know why I'm getting those little tweakers right there, but take care of them in a minute. Actually, kind of look like weeds anyway, so maybe I'll leave them. Happy little accidents, right? That's what it's all about. So there you go. Now you have something that hopefully looks a bit more. And there's so many cool grass brushes that even though, yeah, I really like this one. I think it behaves really well. But that's not, it isn't very often that nature gives you a span of one kind of vegetation. So it's a good thing to have, collections of different grass brushes and things like that. Alright, what am I going to do here? Let's get rid of some of this stuff. That one. Good enough. Okay, so now we got a good basic thing of grass. So we'll go into on mode, or over, yeah, on mode. That's the one I want. And we'll pick a different, just, I don't know, some color of grass over here, something lighter. And maybe the sun is, let's see, wait a minute, let me go back to my grass brush here. I'll turn the opacity down, and because now we have it in on mode, it's not going to draw any more. It'll just change the top edge. So we can put a highlight on there. And you can see I'm kind of sticking to leaving some shadow areas on the back side of where I perceive the little knolls to be. I'm leaving that kind of dark over there because we're putting the tree in, and I would pretty much only be covering up the, making more shadows anyway. Yeah, I really like this grass brush. It that's the way it looks. I don't know if you can see that very well, but because it has very soft edges, it tends to blend with itself really well. And the nice thing about it is if you have too much, like right there, you just go over with the background color, and that kind of blends the bottom edge of the grass you just did, softens the shadow line a little bit, so it doesn't look so, obvious. Kind of lets you play back and forth and control things, and add a little bit of randomness, I guess. Here we go. I can live with that. Isn't that nice? It's basically my way of doing this is to put color on and then work with that, process it after it's already in place. I don't try to get it right the first time. I just lay in, like if I need grass, I put in grass. Now I can go back in and add the shading and lighting to that separately. So here we go. Here goes my least favorite part. Now, alright, here is a GD landscape cheat that I have used more than once. If I don't feel like putting a big tree in, if I don't necessarily want to do that, but I want to get the same effect. I'll go with a very dark green, and I'll just use a leaf brush. Typically this one. I like this brush a lot. Sometimes I have to copy it down. I can't seem to always get it to have enough density by itself. Okay, that's still soft light. That's normal. I'm trying to think of where I can condense a layer here. I can drop that one down. So what am I doing? A tree. Okay. Doing a tree. So sometimes I won't actually draw the tree. I'll just do leaves. And I'm not sure this is the right application for that, because really there should be the trunk of a tree over there. But let's just say that I want to hurry this up, that I like it is. Alright, so you know what? I'm going over mode, and we'll put the leaves, we'll make them good size. And I'll just do this. There are times when I've just done that. I've drawn no branches whatsoever and just filled in and just done the impression of a tree. And of course you clean up the outside ones, you know, some of them. Now you can come back in with erase and hit the edges and clean it up that way. If you use the same brush, I found that if you're doing things like grass, I like leaves too. If you're doing things like grass, when you go to erase it, like for instance, if I have the tree trunk setting in, I want grass growing up around it, a lot of times instead of drawing the grass in around the roots, I will use the erase tool. If there's grass already around it and behind it, I'll use the erase tool and use it around the base of the trunk of the tree, and that green shows through and it still takes the shape of the grass. And it's kind of a cool way to manage that. So anyway, I have done that before. I've actually used that effect instead of actually going to the trouble of drawing a whole tree. Come on. Come on. There we go. I'm locking up again pretty good. So let me just clear that layer. Go with a little... Alright, I'll tell you what. Let's go with a nice deep red, brownish red. Not too much saturation, not too much color. Nice deep one. There we go. I will use vector and over, and here it comes, boys and girls, my least favorite part of landscaping. You're welcome, Poppy. Glad you had fun. Thanks for sticking around. Alright, here it comes. That wasn't so bad, was it? Alright. That went pretty good. Maybe I'm getting better at these things. Tweeze! So just remember that, of course, they gradually get thinner as they go up, not the other way around. That's the thing that because I tend to be very casual in my drawing approach. A lot of times my trees tend to suffer for that because of that right there. See, it just... And sometimes I'll actually take the time to go in and trim these things up, and, you know, so they're just more convincing. Like that necessarily wouldn't be that big right there. Minor adjustments, you know. So you can do that. It's always a good way around it. And it's a good way to texture, too, if something looks a little too smooth. You can texture by putting it in erase and scribbling along the edge in an up and down fashion. See, and that kind of gives you like almost a rough bark kind of texture. Okay. Oops. So, like I said, with the mountains, the same technique I used to highlight the mountains right there is what I'm going to use to texture the tree. And you all know how that goes. You pick a lighter color, a little bit lighter, a little bit, and put the vector in on mode because you want to draw only on the brown part of the tree. My light source is coming, as we already said, it's already coming from the left. So we keep that in mind and we start scribbling up and down because the tree bark goes up and down. And you can create all sorts of interesting things here. Like, for instance, I'll do a knot in the tree right here. So you scribble up and down. Same thing as the mountains, same thing. Keep in mind where your light source is. Keep in mind the shapes that you want. And take a look at the way knots grow in trees and things like that. Like, you can tell that's where a branch used to be because of the circular part on the bottom, right? You can tell that a branch used to be there and it broke off. Those are the kind of things that you need to pay attention to when you just, when you go for a walk or something and really start studying textures, keeping in mind how you might be able to synthesize some of these textures yourself. Learn to look at things differently, learn to observe a little less casually. Same thing now, crossing over that line over and over again. That's how you get your texture, and you pretty much stop where you start. Shouldn't take a lot of time. You should be able to do this texturing very quickly. Scribble your way up the tree, and I could have shot up that side branch just then. I was thinking about it. I could do it like here. A little more maybe. So you can take all these side avenues. You can do this in little chunks, or you can do what I'm doing and do a whole lot of the tree at one time. I'm just going to keep going with this same line, the same, It's all about scribbling. It's scribble, scribble. Keep it loose, keep it fast. Don't worry about stuff. Don't worry about any of it. Let go of having to control everything. Now here's an interesting thing. Just the way this bump is on this limb gives me an opportunity. Let's see, I'll bring the highlighting, and I'll highlight this side of it, then I'll bring it down over here. So now it's kind of given this weird sort of, twist to this certain part of it. And likewise up here I can bring the highlight up over this way. Now this may look awkward, but that's what undo is for, right? So there you go. You can play with okay, I can do that. How would I? Yeah, that might get involved. You need we need a big chunk of empty space. All right, I'll do it. I'm up for it. I'm up for the challenge. We'll put Sketch Club on there if I don't forget. Now keep in mind on each of these roots there's going to be highlight and shadow. So maybe over here not very much light gets through, but maybe just enough for that end of the root. Maybe only a little bit over here. So that's the way you do the tree. You same thing as the mountains. There's an interesting color scheme gets into color theory is using complementary colors to do highlight and shadow. So I'll show you how that works. Because we're using a warm highlight, we would use a cool shadow color. And the most naturally occurring one in this picture anyway is from the sky. So we'll shadow with a shade of the sky color. So it'll look more like ambient light. I'll put another tree knot in here. Used to be another branch that grew out right there. How you guys doing? You holding up all right? See, you're sticking around. It's been at this an hour and a half now. Thanks for stopping around. I hope I'm giving you something useful to play with. Alright, so the tree right there will hide some of the shadow coming off this branch, so maybe we'll keep that little part right there dark. Now leaves would actually hide a lot of this highlight, so don't feel the need to be this thorough about it. I think I'm just playing at this time. This point. That's the word I wanted. Point. Alright, so here's what we'll do for the shadow color, or the ambient light color. We'll select the sky. How's my finger? My finger is fine. If I ever go back out and visit Shell Bell, I'll be somewhere close to Jim. So there he is. There's the man. Hey Jim. I was just telling him that before you made the select tool that I had threatened to kiss you if you actually ever made me a select tool, and how I was pretty sure you probably forgot about that, but I haven't, so I'll show up at your house someday. Pucker up, big boy. Thanks for the select tool. That's disconcerting, huh? Don't lose sleep over that, by the way. Yeah, he just it's like, oh crap, he still remembered. I get it. I get it. I never. Oh, hate Valentine's Day. How you doing, Julio? Glad to see you. You're in here. That might do it. There he is. Hey, Jim. So, okay, so here we go. We have the tree on its own layer. Trees are very layer intensive. At some point, I collapse them, but here's what generally happens is that I will have a layer that I'll put underneath the tree layer. That's the first layer of leaves. Okay, so we'll pick a nice dark green because they're going to be mostly in shadow, the back side of the leaves, and then I'll show you how to highlight these things. So we take the leaves brush, right? Is that what I have? I have vector. There we go. There's my leaves thing, right? My favorite leaf brush, and it's just because I like the shape of them. I have to experiment with more. So now keep in mind, this is the layer. I'll show you again. This is the layer that's underneath the tree. Okay, so these leaves will show up over on this side of the tree. Put more on the ends where you see the little branches, less where you see just big pieces of trunk. Pieces of trunk. So that looks about good. Nothing too, too crazy. Maybe there. All right. There are branches on the other side of the tree that you can't see. That's the way that goes. All right, so that's enough leaves, right? We don't really need more of them. So from now on, at least with this layer, we're going into on mode. Pieces of trunk, I know, I did say that, didn't I? And we'll go with a brighter leaf color. We'll just go select one from the other bank over here. Now we'll do the same thing. Now check this out. This is how we add subtle highlights. We turn down the opacity a little bit. I have the brush in on mode, and I'm just going to draw on these leaves and thinking where the light source is coming from. So it's like over on that side. So it's going to be, I'll have more highlight over here than I will on these branches in the back here. Maybe just a little on the ones that are hanging down. They'd be hanging in the spotlight, the sunlight, that thing. So brighter greens over there. And if you overdo it, don't worry about it. Just go back in and sample the dark color and add that back in. So you can adjust and play with this stuff as it goes. All right. Oh, what are you cooking? What are you making us? Better be something good. That wasn't a threat. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to imply a threat. I'm usually much nicer than that. But I got low blood sugar, you know. I'm a little hungry here. All right. Any questions so far? I'm really sorry I told you that. I'm really sorry I said anything about that. I knew better. I knew better, Jim. I apologize. You shouldn't have mentioned it. But I do. I gotta say, Jim, thank you so much for the select tool. So handy. Loving it. I love it. I'm adding a little bit of darker leaves in here for even more shadow on the shady side of the tree. It's locking up on me, Jim. This iPad 2 thing is starting not to work out so well for me. All right, so there you go. So that's the easy way. You put on a layer of leaves, get the density so you like it, put it in on mode, and use the same brush to choose darker and lighter tones to add your highlights and your shadows. That's just one side of the tree now. Okay? So I could merge that down, but let me do this. Now I could copy that layer. I could maybe manipulate that, but what fun is that? So we go back to over mode. A lot of these leaves are going to be on the inside because it's the light is coming from the other side of the tree, kind of. And I still have to go back in and put the shadow tone in the tree. I forgot to do that. Oh, come on. Locked up on me again. There we go. This will add more leaves, by the way. Okay, now this might be handy to turn off the underlying layer so you get a good idea of working with just what you've added here. And you can do the same thing. We'll go back in and pick maybe not the brightest highlight color, just a lighter color. put the brush back in on mode again, still using the leaves brush, and just add just a little bright spot in there, here and there, where maybe some of the light from the other side is hitting. But this is the part of the tree that's going to have more shadow. If you overdo it, just go back in, select the deepest shadow color you got, and tweeze it up a little bit. Same thing almost as what I've done with the clouds. The same thing, where you just maintain that highlight edge and sort of get a little deconstructive with the shadow side. Same thing that I did with those clouds, you remember? I'm doing pretty much the same thing. Instead of using erase, I'm just using highlight and shadow and using the same effect. Get deconstructed with the shadow side and maintain your highlight side. Alright, so now when we put all that together and turn that layer back on, now we have that. And it's, see? Nice, huh? So that's the top of the tree. Now keep in mind, we have one thing we have to do yet. We're going to do a little more work on the trunk of the tree, because like I said, I was going to, and I forgot this, pick a little bit deeper shade of the sky color. It's not going to look realistic, okay? This isn't photorealistic. You can go subtle with it, and I'm sorry, I got distracted looking at something. Keep it in vector, keep it in on mode. I forgot completely what I was going to say. It's more, it's more of an illustrative thing. It's using this complementary color scheme. That's what I was going to say. So you do on the shadow side, you highlight it, so to speak. It's got ambient light over there, right? A little bit of light reflecting from the sky and all this. So you do the cool shadow over here. The warm shadow faces the highlight. I'm just going to scribble this in really quickly just to demonstrate for you. Not going to worry too much about nothing. Just so you get the idea, the rough look. Not caring about finished product right now. So you see the way this goes? See the effect? I think I went with actually too bright a blue. But that's the effect. Let me try it again with just a little less opacity. Yeah, the nice thing about toning down the opacity is because it lets the underlying color show through, which is going to be part of that color anyway. So just really hardly any other way to mix a browny blue. Browny blue. Yeah, that's a little better. It's a little more subdued. And if you remember yesterday when I was talking about, wait a minute, a little more, this stuff, that's as much as I'm going to do. I wish I could leave. This is why it's bad to give me hearts until you know that I'm done with a sketch. Alright, and if you have like big areas like this, remember I told you not to worry about stuff too much? Like, quite honestly, that looks like crap. It really does. But if I go back in with my base tree color, you can scribble over that and correct an awful lot of this just by adding texture in. In the same way, scribble up, follow your line back down. It's always the same thing. Scribble along a line, make a line, and then when you come back, cross the line a lot, and it gives you a lot of texture. Okay, so we can go back in and correct those things, and then just add more texture very quickly. See, no big deal. You can't really get it too wrong. You are pushing it. You are. You are. You're taking advantage of the fact that I'm watching more what I'm doing than watching chat. All right, see you later, Tanchi. So there you go. That's the basic ambient shadow side of the tree. You like? You like that? So you got warm and cool shadows. Now granted, it looks very blocky and everything, but here's where we went into this last night. You pick the base color of the tree, right? Still keep it in vector and in on, but you want your gradient on. And we can begin to use gradient and soften this edge that's in between where the two colors meet. So that way it kind of, it kind of makes the tree look a little rounder when you soften the highlights. Kind of puts a little bit of roundness into the branches. Pretty good, huh? And there's another thing. Now, if you think about this, the other thing that you would see shadow-wise is that all those leaves would be casting shadows on the trunk as well. So what we can do is to go into the brush. We still have the leaves brush. We keep it in on mode like we had it, right? And you could either pick black or you could use the base tree color. Maybe even step that down just a little bit darker. And we're only painting on the tree now, so this will... Let me use bigger leaves. I like leaves. So just put some shadows of leaves on there. That'll add some believability to it when you put the layers back on, which we'll do now. And there we go. So we have a pretty decent tree. All right. So that looks all pretty good, except for one thing. That looks like crap. Trees don't end like that. So remember what I told you earlier, is that there are two choices here. We can either draw in, and it's a good choice, you can draw in foliage and grass and things in between. And if I were going to add like flowers and maybe some long weeds and stuff, that would be the route I would take. Here's the short, quick method. Is you take the same brush you used to make the grass, right? Maybe dial the size up a little bit and put it in erase mode. And just erase along at the bottom of the tree. I might be using it a little too big. I know, weeds, right? See, so it kind of, the more, it's the same thing where you're kind of doing some destructive stuff here. See, there you go. That's a little better. That's one way to handle it. Yeah, we'll have to add some rabbits at some point. And then you can go into this lower layer where the foreground is, and maybe that color. I wonder if that's, yeah, that's darker yet. Oh. In over mode. What am I doing here? I think I need actually darker. Yeah, I'm going for heavy shadows here. Kick the opacity up. Yeah, destructive creation is... There we go. Maybe knock the opacity down a little bit, but you know, we need a shadow in here for the tree. And likewise, I would advise darkening that side of the tree even more. I love that grass brush. Look how nice that does. What a nice job. The pocket knife carving effect. Well, we had to remove some of the bark. And that's not too hard. A little time consuming. Okay, now I got to tell you, when I got ready to do the class, I was telling Fleur, you know, just give me a second, I got to get my coffee around and this. So I got my coffee, and it's sat the whole time now, an hour and a half or whatever it's been. My coffee, I think I took like 3 sips out of it, and now it's all cold. There was another sketch I did where I did a carving in a tree, and let's see, I don't think I want gradient here. Yeah. Alright, so we'll put the carving right here. So the first thing we need is a place where the bark is kind of peeled away. So we'll go in with our shadow color. We have it on vector. Still have it in, I think I'll keep it in on mode just in case. Now what's going to be underneath the bark is a lighter shade of wood. So maybe what I want to do first is to select this. We'll just use this as our area. And do kind of just a jagged thing where, you know, maybe even a little farther down. Okay. Now I'm going to put this in, and I'm kind of making this up as I go along here. I will tell ya. Okay. And we'll put it back and over. I'm thinking right now, what I got in my mind is, what would the texture of this be? It's not going to be the same texture as the bark. It's going to be a little bit smoother. So what I'll do is I'll take that deep tone, maybe even just a little bit darker, because we're dealing with a shadow kind of effect, and just kind of putting in some lines, because this is what would be underneath. It would be the grain of the actual wood. I'm just kind of randomly doing it, trying not to worry too much. We'll see how it looks. If it sucks, that's what undo is for, right? And while I'm at it, I think I'll add just a bit of a shadow line, a darker one, to just the edge of it. And then I'll go over it. I'll go in with the blue again and add a bit of shadow color to define the just the way the bark goes around this. So I'm going down the line that I want to give a shadow to, and I'm not so much crossing my line on the way back up. I'm just kind of adding a little depth to the recessed areas. The darker parts of an object, when you're doing highlights and shadows, darker objects recede, they go away from you. Highlights come towards you. That's always a good rule of thumb to keep in mind. Alright. That's a good enough space, right? We can work with that. So we'll sample that color, and because we have to have the bark shape around it, this is when we go back to scribbling. I'm going to stick with short amounts just so it doesn't really kind of get away from me much. And I'll probably soften this a little bit by selecting the background tree color and gradient, just to soften this up a bit. You all learning stuff? I'm really surprised at how many of you are sticking around. And maybe even kind of wandering into dangerous territory here a little bit. Because we'll see what it looks like if I try to put a gradient on this. Oh, yeah, it kind of looks like crap. Too much. Let me knock the opacity down, try it again. Maybe not up quite as high. Yeah, I'm going to call it good. I could do better. Keep in mind, it is in the shadow side of it, so it would be maybe harder to see. I'm justifying now. I'm trying to rationalize the fact that I'm not pulling this off 100% to my own satisfaction. Okay. So here's what we're doing. Here comes the carving, I guess. Go even deeper. Got vector and over mode. Alright, here we go. And when you're carving in a tree, you don't do nice round curves, right? How's that? That look okay? I think I'll try the pen tool for this part, the highlights. Hey. Hmm. Who's that one maybe? Or vector. Aw, thank you. I'm going to brighten this up. That's what my problem is. Well, it's not the best I could have done, but, you know, there it is. Oh, you're welcome. I'm having a lot of fun teaching you guys. Okay. So, do you guys have any questions? Hi, Ems. Aw, that's nice. Pen tool is very nice. I have this on the calligraphy setting. It makes nice grass. This is not for the impatient. This kind of thing. Usually when I do a landscape and I add this kind of detailing, this is the stuff that takes hours. Because there's no other way. Nobody's, you know, I haven't seen a brush yet that does grass effectively as if you were to do it this way and do it all by hand. So, I mean, at some point, as much as I like things to be quick and easy, sometimes the best results are gotten by not that rude at all, by taking the time to do it right. And use some brushes where you can, you know, that's of course an excellent time saver. The trick is getting a brush to look like it's not a brush. That's always been a challenge for me. So let me show you how I do flowers real quick, because I use a similar technique. I gotta wipe off the screen. It's all greasy. I got greasy fingers for some reason. Because I like to put flowers in, you know. Flowers are nice. Here's flower brushes, and one that I like is, I have to go find it. It's freezing up on me. Yeah, I guess it would for individual bits of grass, yeah. This is inconvenient. Yeah. Would you like to send a crash report? No, he's right here. Alright, so where was I? Trying to get my brushes to behave. There we go. See, now they want to play nice. There's another grass brush right there. That's a kind of a cool one. It's a little short, which means the repetition of the pattern shows up pretty quickly. But I do like it for little patches. Flowers. I am looking for flowers. Now there's, I think that's snowflakes. Can this be inverted so that I'm looking at black brushes on a white background again? I would like that. Because now I'm, there we go. I like that one. Again, I can't tell you where. Behave yourself. I can't tell you where this particular flower brush is, either in nature or organic or something. I encourage you to go out and experiment. Like, there's another good grass brush. It's somewhere in there. I wish I really could tell you exactly where they are, but I encourage you to go collect lots of flower and leaf brushes and grass and, you know, whatever. So that's the grass, the flower brush that I like to use. I sort of like to do this on its own layer. I'll just use the layer that the tree leaves are on right now. So let's pick a nice color. What color flowers? What color flowers am I doing? We're doing yellow. We're doing orange. Pick a color. Can't believe you guys aren't jumping on the pick a color wagon. Doing pink? Okay. Alright, we'll do pink. Pink flowers with yellow. Well, okay, so pink, alright, we'll do orange, pink, purple. That's my favorite color, is orange, pink, purple. Anyways, okay, that's what you want, that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to put the little things on my own, on their own layer. Actually, well, not their own layer. I'm going to put them on this layer right here that has the leaves, the upper layer of leaves on it. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to draw them out. And yeah, that looks okay, right? Well, yeah, I guess, if you're easily satisfied. I tend to like to do this with them. I like to hit them with select and then transform them and move them in so the perspective, kind of like that. I like to do that, kind of transform them a little bit. To me that looks more realistic. Now it looks like they're actually kind of sitting there, right? And you can get them to look like they're rolling down the opposite side of a hill, that kind of thing. Yeah, love the select tool. Love that. Plus you can move it around. I could put it there, for instance. I've yet to fully explore everything this select tool does, but nice stuff. Okay, so here's the other thing that I do. I'll go in with the grass brush that I used underneath them, right? And put the brush on erase. And this is another one of those things that sells it. Because you go in. Yeah, thanks for the select tool. Okay, now I have the grass brush. I have it on erase. Full opacity. And hit just the front edge, the edge towards you. Don't do straight lines necessarily, just tap it in. Because you want to bury the ones that are closest to you. So it looks like, again, it's the same thing with the clouds. Same thing with the clouds. You destroy the bottom edge as that fades into the grass. You wouldn't see as much of it, but you maintain the top layer, the highlight area. Same thing. This technique works with so much stuff. And yeah, I'm kind of zoomed in right now, but you can see, once you do this, see how much more natural that looks? So you can use this technique with a lot. You can use it with leaves, you can use it with grass, you can use it with weeds, whatever, that you use the same brush in erase mode to destroy, get that destructive editing on the bottom edge of what you're trying to do. See, that looks so much better, doesn't it? I mean, it really looks like they're in there. And now that you have that on its own layer, see, here's now where we can come in with a little bit of yellow and knock the opacity down and put the brush in on mode, because you don't want to draw any more petals, you just want to work with the ones that are there. And now we can, what am I doing wrong? Oh, I'm on the wrong, no, still on it. Maybe I will use the airbrush. Oh, that's why I was using the grass brush. That's why. Let me use the flower brush. Sorry. And now we can only where the other flowers are. I'm just adding just a couple. I don't want to inundate the whole thing. Yeah, isn't that nice? And again, thanks to the select tool, and we go up to this layer and hit copy, and let me paste them in there. Go down to this layer and hit paste. Now we have flowers there, and I can move these around to some other area without necessarily having to draw the whole thing over again. And just so it doesn't look like a copy of it, flip it around, because we're not really dealing with shadows and highlight here. Okay, so just that easy, you can go up and hit clear, remember. Pretty cool, huh? And then of course you could combine those layers and then merge them, select that, copy it the same way, so you can work with a very small little patch of flowers and cover quite a bit of ground with it. So if I collapse this now, if I collapse this tree down to one layer, because I'm pretty sure I wouldn't want to change anything with the tree. Now that I've used up 3 layers, I can merge this all down. So now all of this is on one layer. See that? Pretty cool, huh? I hate merging layers. I really do. I hate making those decisions. But sometimes when you put everything on one layer like that, when you know you're done with it, you know, I'm really not going to do too much with the tree. I might, this is one of those things that I kind of wish we had, and I don't mean this as a complaint. It's just one thing that I miss from Photoshop, is the using a brush in either dodge or burn. That was pretty handy to have a brush that specialized in that, so maybe someday we'll have that. So anyway, now that we have that, I was going to say now that we have all that on a layer, I can go back in with the select tool, select that. Oh, actually I already have it copied, don't I? I don't really need to. I can go in on this layer and paste. See, and have another little, see how cool that is? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Go into this one, paste another layer of flowers there. Take that, maybe put it up here. Maybe flip it that way so it doesn't look so obvious. Easy, super easy. Nice stuff, huh? So that's basic landscape stuff. I'm not sure what else I could show you. I could, if one thing, let's say if I wanted to add to this, I could put a little cabin somewhere along the shore, over on the other side, something like that. Put in some details over on the other side, you know, to bring your eye into this area, because it's really kind of naked over there. I said naked. It's, yeah, you could put a nice little cabin over there, put some trees around it and some grass, kind of do some landscaping over there, you know? Want to see how to do sun rays? Sun rays are really cool. You got to see sun rays. I got to show you sun rays, as long as I got you here. So let's merge that and that down. Merge. Come on, merge. There we go. I said naked. So here's what you want to do. You want to make sure that you have nothing selected. If you have select tool on, hit the clear. Just remember to do it. Make it a habit. Go down to vector. You want square. You want gradient. Probably 100%. You want to pick a sunlight color, like a very pale yellow. And here's what we do, boys and girls. We start drawing out these. So we make one. Let's take the opacity down. Make one. And this is, again, this is very, very casual. Make another one over here. Maybe one in between them. You want to break it up a little. You might put it on erase and some of that. So this is what you're looking for. You're looking for kind of a variety of depth, all right? We'll call that good. We'll call that perfect. All right? So now you can see where this is going already, right? So now all you have to do, shrink your sketch down, because you want a lot of room when you transform this. You want a lot of room to manipulate things. So we're going to drop this layer down to, let's see, it has to be above the mountains, maybe in front of the foothills. All right, we'll drop it there. so it's behind the trees. Alright, here we go, boys and girls. So we tilt it and we angle in the perspective of the side so it looks like it's coming from. You might have to play around. And it's kind of meant to be a subtle effect. Now what I'm going to do. All right, and that's like not playing around with it. So here's what I'm going to do so it looks a little more authentic. I'm going to create another layer right above it, drag it down underneath and copy it down. And I might copy it down one more time. So there you go. Now you got something to work with. Now you can hit it with blur, because you kind of want that softened a little bit. So I'm going at about 19, 20, something like that. Let's do it again. Let's give it another shot. There we go. Soften that up. And now you can, play with the opacity. You can kind of back that down so it's not quite so. So that's a quick way to make sun rays. And you can make them, of course, you can use that for a lot of things, flashlight beams or any kind of beam of light. Just use the vector gradient, do it the square, just make rectangles, and then yeah. So there's another trick for you. Maybe that's really all I got to show you. I don't know. Nothing else is coming to mind. So we good? You guys happy with class? Can I stop? We've been at this 2.5 hours. I love you guys. I love you guys so much for sticking with me. 2.5 hours. That's some kind of record. That is some kind of record. So, another cool thing you can do. Let me show you something really quick. I'll need another layer. We're going to drag this down. This is, if you haven't used Dodge before, I'm going to go up and turn off the tree because I want you to see the sky. I'm going to turn off the sun ray. If you haven't used Dodge, this is a cool thing. So both Sebastian and Fleur are really responsible for me playing around with this more. So what you want to do when you're going to do this, you go above, put the Dodge layer. First of all, set it to Dodge. That's always helpful. Then you fill it in with black. What's going to happen is it'll become invisible. It looks like I did nothing, but if you look at the layers, my Dodge layer is in black, right? Now anything that I want to work on underneath it, let's say I want to highlight these clouds, you have to select the lightest area, which actually might be, let's say, there, and then make it just a little lighter. Just kick it up just a little more. Now when you draw on that layer, it will, anything that's above that layer, oops, be nice if I use the right brush. You can use the cloud brush. I tend to like to use the airbrush. This is one of those things. And not very, put the opacity back so you kind of ease this in, right? Man, this, would be, this should be on its own layer. It's going to be difficult because I have the clouds on their own layer, or I have them on the same layer way too high. This is when you darken the color down a little bit. See how it will affect. Now wait a minute. I'm wondering if I match the Dodge layer to whatever shade that is. The same darkness. I wonder if it would leave that color alone. I don't know. I got to play more with this stuff. But at any rate, that's that's a good way. I should use the cloud brush. Let's try that. Let's see how that does for us. I'll pick any old color. It really doesn't matter. I mean, you can use a color. Like if I wanted to warm those up, I could make it a pale yellow. I'll show you. The yellow will come into play. I'm still on. I don't know why I still have square on. Alright, I'm beginning to fail miserably here. Yeah, black is like an erase. Alright. See, so you can use the color. See, it'll have a bit of an effect. If you don't want to alter the color at all, just stick with grays, hues of gray. Stick to this side of the color thing. Anyway, this isn't going to work the way I want it to, and it's because I have the clouds on the same layer as the sky. So ordinarily, I could just affect the layer underneath by only having the clouds, on just isolated, easy to work with. So I guess we're not doing that. So anyway, there we go. More or less finished landscape. So there you go, guys. 2.5 hours. I hope you learned something. Jim, thank you very much for everything you do, for all the new improvements, and for just being a cool guy, being patient with everybody. Awesome. You guys are welcome. Oh, your gratitude can be dying. It can fade out over time. I don't need constant adoration. Sporadic is fine with me. So, I love you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. And Jim will get this posted, and you can watch it again.